Brushes. I want to talk about brushes today because I think it's a really important little piece of what we do. It's a huge piece of what we do as artists. And I'm going to disappear under the table here, sort of like Jack in the Box, because I've got a big stack of brushes I want to show you. So hang on, I'll be right back. Presto! I'm like a Jack in the Box. So I've got a bunch of brushes I want to show you today, and some good, some really expensive, some. Hey, Coho Salmon, I'm glad to see you there. Um, some of them are good, some of them are great, some of them are super cheap, some of them are expensive. But one thing that they all have in common is that I have used them, so I'm not going to show you anything that I haven't used. And I will point out some of the ins and outs of these brushes as we go. So let me just go to the overhead camera here and get that locked in. Hang on a sec, guys. I am still trying to get things working over here. They are not behaving properly. So let's see if this works now. Can you actually hear me now? Good. It looks like you can. Oh man. There are days when I should just not get out of bed, right? Maybe? All right. I'm just going to make sure you guys can hear me well. All right. We're good to go now. I think everything should be working. I want to show you some brushes that I've got here. Um, my new favorite brush, I'm going to put this against the white paper so you can see it. My new favorite brush, or set of brushes, are these Polytip brushes by Catalyst. They're made by Princeton, and they are the same people that make the Catalyst blades that I love so much. So these polytip bristles, let's try that again. Polytip bristles um, they're a synthetic bristle. Let me show that up to the camera. They're a synthetic bristle, and the thing I like about them is that they hold their shape pretty well. They hold their shape almost as well as a hog bristle. And in terms of the way that I kind of beat up on brushes, and I'm kind of hard on them. I really want a brush that is going to come back for more punishment, so to speak. So these Polytip bristles are really good, the ones by Princeton. And another thing I want to tell you guys too is when I put links to stuff in the show notes for these videos and you click on them, those are affiliate links, and I make a little bit of, I make a few pennies on that. But I never ever want you all to think that I'm promoting something just for that reason. I don't promote stuff that I don't use, and it has to be good stuff. So that's the whole deal. Why promote something that's no good, right? These are good brushes. Let me show you another couple. Now that's the filbert. That's a filbert bristle. You can see that has that rounded tip. I like to show things on this white card so you can really see that rounded tip there. If you're in the Thursday night class, we're going to be using these filbert brushes for our lemon painting that's coming up tomorrow night. So we're going to be using the filbert brush for that. That was a filbert. This is a bright. You can see here the bristles are square and rather short in relationship to the ferrule. This is the ferrule of the brush. That is the metal part that holds the bristles in. And square brushes haven't been around that long. I want to say about the same time they started putting paint in tubes, in the mid 1800s. So believe it or not, up until that time, We only had round brushes, more or less, because round brushes, if you look at some really old brushes, you will see that they don't have a metal ferrule, that the bristles are wired into the handle. And in order to do that, the brush makers had to really individually create the brush and then wire it. So they didn't have a way to crimp this metal ferrule at the bottom there. See how that's crimped? That keeps the bristles together, keeps the ferrule on the handle, and all that kind of stuff. Up until the mid 1800s, I want to say it was the mid 1800s, it might have been earlier, but I doubt it. They did not have a way to crimp the ferrule. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name that came up with that, and I can't. It escapes me right now. But if you want to know, just shoot me an email or I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes for you. Pretty cool stuff in terms of like these innovations that come up that we wouldn't be able to do the stuff we do. Look at the crimping on this one here. I'll flip it to the light so you can see it a little better. The crimping here, we wouldn't be able to do some of the cool stuff we can do without some of these innovations. Something as simple as being able to crimp a metal ferrule onto the bristles so they'll stay put. Now we can have square bristled brushes. I mean, I think about this kind of stuff. I don't know if you guys do, but these are the kind of things. I'm a paint geek, so of course I think about this kind of stuff. So this is a Princeton Bright as well, and this one is hog bristle, and you can tell the difference between hog bristle and I'm going to get a synthetic brush here in just a second as soon as I find one. So here's a synthetic brush. And you can always tell the difference between synthetic and hog bristle because the hog bristle brushes will not have a uniform end. They will be a little irregular on the end. I don't know how well you can see that, but it might be going out of focus. But they look a little splayed on the end. And that is a good thing. That gives you a wonderful kind of brush stroke, and they also spring back really well. A lot of synthetic fibers don't spring back. They will stay flat. And that can be real problematic when you're working. You want to be able to put that fully loaded paintbrush down and have it come right back. And hog bristles do that. So this is another Princeton brush. It just so happens I've got a lot of Princeton brushes here. I like that brush company, but I like other ones as well. This is a Bright. So I want to put out 3 or 4 different kinds of brushes here, the different types of bristles. We've got a Bright, a filbert, a round, and I'm looking to see if I have a flat. This looks like a flat right here. No, it's a Bright. I may not have a flat with me. Let's see. Oh, this looks like a flat. Yeah. So I want to show the flat and the Bright next to each other. So take a look at the relationship. Whoops, get my fingers to work here. Take a look at the relationship between the bristles on the flat and the bristles on the Bright. But the relationship of the length of the bristles to the length of the ferrule. Whenever you get a Bright brush, the bristles are going to be shorter in relationship to the ferrule, and a flat brush, the bristles are going to be longer in relationship to the ferrule. Now, why does this matter? Well, if you want to make short, kind of choppy brush strokes, a Bright is your best friend. On the other hand, if you want to take a fully loaded paint brush like a flat and make a long brush stroke, then a flat is going to be your best friend. It will make a longer brush stroke and stay loaded longer than a Bright. Okay? All right, so let's talk about the parts of a brush by Tisa Blackburn. Before I do that, I'm going to go over here and check the chat box and see if we're okay. Looks like we don't have anybody flailing around out there. That's good. Okay, so let's talk about the parts of a brush. I'm going to leave this flat right here for you to look at because it's small enough to fit on my card there. The short handle on this one right here denotes that this brush is a watercolor brush. Now, how do I know that? Because if it had a long handle like that, it would be an easel brush. And the difference is, now think about this, if you're a watercolor painter and you have this brush and you're working close to your work, which a lot of watercolor people will work over a table or something like that, this brush right here is going to be perfect for that because of the short handle. Why? Because if you have a long handle like this and you're working over a table, you could poke yourself in the eye. So it's just like a real fundamental thing. It's not fancy at all. So that kind of gives you the answer to the difference between a short handle and a long handle. Now, does that mean you can only use a short handle brush on watercolor? No, of course not. It just means that it's handy if you don't want to poke yourself in the eye. Of course, they're interchangeable. You can do both with either one of those brushes. Okay, so that's the handle. The ferrule, of course, we talked about the ferrule is the part that keeps the bristles in place and connects the bristles to the handle and is crimped. And then good brush makers will also glue the bristles down into the ferrule and then crimp it before they put it to the handle. So if you've ever had a brush lose its grip, so to speak, lose its grip on the handle, like it comes loose and your handle starts wiggling, you can actually take the ferrule and the bristles off, glue it, and crimp it a little bit again and save the brush if it's a good brush. Every once in a while that'll happen. Okay, types of brushes. Flat we talked about. Bright we talked about. We have a round, and rounds come in both short handles and long handles. Okay, and sizes, boy, sizes are problematic because brush makers don't necessarily use a uniform sizing apparatus. So look at this. These are both size 8 by Princeton. Now that's because within the Princeton line, you will find that the sizes are going to be uniform within a manufacturer. But you could get a size 8 from another company and it'd be a completely different size. So kind of frustrating there, but if you know your brushes and you know what you like, then you shouldn't have any problem. And I recommend that you get several different types of brushes and try them out to see what they do. You know, different brushes will do different things. I have a few favorites I'm going to show you here. Now, when I'm working, I don't have any of my big Robert Simmons Signet brushes with me because I'm in my home studio, and my home studio is pretty tiny, so I don't do any big work here. But these are my Robert Simmons Signet brushes. These are old soldiers. Look at these guys. These have been around. Look at the handle. This one's kind of broken. These have been around for a long time. I have been using Robert Simmons Signet brushes for heavy duty acrylic and oil work since I was in college. And I won't tell you how long ago that was either. But it was more than a decade. So, and I do have some of these brushes that are, 10 or 15 years old, and they really take a beating. They are good, strong brushes. The Signet line is all boar bristle. It's 100% boar bristle, so they're really tough. They take a beating, okay? So that's the Robert Simmons Signet line. And then I showed you the Princeton line. And then, oh, here is one of these brushes. I'm going to show you a hand tied brush. See that right there? That is what I was talking about when back in the old days they would hand wire the bristles to the ferrule or to the handle, excuse me. Isn't that cool? That's a hand wrapped brush from Princeton. That one actually, I believe that is squirrel. That's a squirrel mop. Squirrel, or maybe it might be, I'm pretty sure it's squirrel. The reason that you would have a big squirrel mop like this, if you were a watercolorist, these things hold a ton of water. So you can get a big, big, big puddle of water going with a squirrel mop like this, and they come really big too. So squirrel hair. And you know, I'm just going to address this issue right now. Let me come to the camera and say howdy to y'all. Um, I am just going to talk about this little issue here real quick because it comes up all the time when I talk about brushes. So far, I've mentioned squirrel and hog and boar, and you're going to see sable and Kolinsky and some other types of fibers. Um, there are some folks that just feel really reluctant to use an animal hair fiber brush, and I totally get that. That's your personal preference, and I honor that. On the other hand, just let me tell you that a lot of these brushes are created from bristles that are not, how shall I say this? They're not being used otherwise. So the animal has already gone to animal heaven, shall I say? And that those bristles are being used as a byproduct of something else. Okay, whether or not that bothers you, that's totally up to you. You can always research how things are made, but just so you know, that's kind of the scoop on that. And it's a fact of life that if you're going to use a squirrel bristle brush, there was probably a squirrel involved in that. Okay, so just, keep it in mind. All right, let's go back over here and I want to show you, since we're talking about natural bristles, and here's an alternative if you want to look at some alternative types of brushes that don't involve squirrels. Here's a set of brushes. These are very, very inexpensive, and if I can get them open, I will show them to you. They're hermetically sealed, so getting them open is going to be tough, right? So bear with me 1 second while I get this open. Everything happens on live YouTube, right? This is like the old days of TV when we had live TV. I'm looking for my scissors because I can't get this open. We had live TV, and Ed Sullivan, if the plates fell over by the guy juggling the plates, they just fell over. It's nothing you could do about it. So we're back to those days, you all. We're back to live TV. Right here in my little home studio. Okay, so this is a set of very inexpensive white nylon brushes. I use these a lot. I consider them almost disposable brushes because they are so inexpensive. I think this whole pack cost me $5, maybe not even that. Okay, so they're called they're made by Low Cornell, Lowewcornell, and I'll put the link in the show notes for you. Super inexpensive. I often get big batches of these and take them into classrooms when I have lots of students, and you can just go to town with them. Now some of them, like this guy right here, I have had for a long time, and I think he started life looking like that. So there you go. They're pretty good. Inexpensive brushes, and super soft, and you'll see right here, made in China, and they are nylon. Okay, so there you go. You don't have to think about squirrels or hogs or anything else when you're buying these guys. Okay. All right, let me just jump over here and see if we have any questions. I don't see any, and I know the Facebook people are lost because it looks like we lost the Facebook feed. So I'm just going to put a note over there to go to YouTube. That's where we are. Okay. Back to here. All right. So I want to know if you have any questions for me in terms of brushes. I'm going to do a little bit of a demo here on the card so you can kind of see what kind of different brushes we've got. We'll get a little bit of water here, and you can kind of see what these different types of brushes do on the paper here. Frida wants to know, what brushes do you recommend for portraits? Well, that would depend on how big the portrait is. So, what size are you looking at in terms of portraits? The and really, this kind of goes to pretty much anything you're doing. Um, let me come and talk. I hate to have you guys listen to me talk while you're staring at a brush. Okay, so when it comes to painting portraits, it really depends on the size of the portrait that you're working on, and that pretty much applies to anything that you're doing. So, no matter what size you're working on, you're going to have your tools in relationship to the size you're working on. So, here's a little tiny piece that I'm working on for my Creative Flow class. Now, am I going to use, a giant squirrel mop on this? No, I'm probably not. I'm probably going to use one of these little guys that I just had out, like this, you know. I'm going to use a smaller brush on a smaller canvas. Now, when it comes to this guy here, I'm going to use a much bigger brush, right? Bigger canvas, bigger brush. So you work in 16 by 20. So you're probably going to be looking at, first of all, if you're doing some blending in acrylic, you're going to want to use glazing liquid. Where's my glazing liquid? Let's get that. Okay, so if you're working in acrylic, make sure you get glazing liquid to keep your paint wet. And then I would suggest, for the blocking in, the underpainting, you're probably going to use larger brushes. Like this is a number 8 from Catalyst. I'll put it up there so you can see it. Put the label so you can see it. Ah, my fingers don't want to work. Let me go like that. There. That's easier, right? Can you see the name? Catalyst poly tip. And then for the more finer detail, then you're going to probably want to size down from that. One thing I would suggest, though, that yes, that is a rigger, Coho. One thing I would suggest, though, is that you don't get too fussy. Don't get too fussy too soon. When you're doing portraits or anything for that matter, try to keep those brush strokes lively and a little bit bigger. When you start doing portraits and stuff, if you get down into these tiny little brushes like this, your stuff's going to get fussy. So pay attention to that. He wants to know, Coho wants to know, is that a rigger in the lower right? Let's go back to the overhead so I can show you the rigger. And yes, good eye, Coho. That's a rigger right there. Ooh, it looks like I got a little bit of a here. Let me go to the right camera. Looks like I got a little bit of a splayed bristle there. But yeah, that's a rigger. And I have another rigger somewhere that I don't see at the moment. Oh, here. This rigger. That's probably the one you were talking about, right? This very long bristle brush. Can you see it? Hold it up a little bit. Yeah, those riggers are great. I'm telling you, you can get such long, gorgeous brush strokes with that. I love me a rigger. I always have to have one in my brush kit. Also, would you subject your squirrel mop to acrylic? No. No, no, no. Uh-uh. I wouldn't put this guy in acrylic. Nah. You'll never get it out. So that's a watercolor brush that will never go into acrylic or oil or anything else, because once you get the acrylic medium in there, it's just a bear to get it out. It can be done, but you're going to have to beat up that brush so much to get the acrylic out of it. Yeah, it's gonna kill it. So it'll never be the same. All right. So speaking of riggers, let's play with this rigger here a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of fluid paint out, and I'll show you. Riggers are fun. I love them. Got a little bit of water, and I do have a kind of absorbent surface here. So I'm just going to load this here. You can see me? Oh, good. Coho, you can see me? All right. Excellent. That's always good to know. So I'm just loading this rigger in the sequin magenta. And look at that. Isn't that pretty? Look at that line. Beautiful line. It really does, get a little more water in there. It really does a great job for long fluidy lines. Take good care of those brushes too, and they will be your friends forever. And you know, I'm so crazy about brush cleaning and stuff that I wrote a blog post about it. It's pretty funny. It's called The True Story of How to Clean Your Brushes. Go to the go to my blog and check it out. It's tisablackburn.blogspot.com. It's a pretty funny story. I got so cranky with somebody about a brush that I had to write a little something about it. Okay, so this guy's nice and clean. One thing I want to remind you of too, when you are cleaning your brushes, if you get them in the water and clean them, let's go over here and show what I mean. Get them in the water and clean them. Don't leave them standing in the water. That's a really bad thing. The bristles will get all splayed out, and that won't be any fun. Once you clean them, wipe them off on paper towels and lay them flat to dry. So when I come in the morning in the studio, I'll have all my brushes will be laying out flat on the table from the day before. And that keeps your bristles from getting all splayed out and keeps them nice and pristine. And clean your brushes, you guys. Golly. Mom says clean your brushes. Okay, so how about, let me show you the difference between, let's get something you'll be able to see. I get a little naphthol red light here. And I want to show you the difference between a brush that's being used properly and a brush that isn't. So here is a soft nylon brush, and I'm going over to the heavy body paint and not getting much out of that, right? So that's a soft brush. If I take a big bristle brush like this one and load it up, look at the difference. See the difference there? This soft bristle brush is just not beefy enough. It's not strong enough to use with the heavy body paint. It's perfect for the fluid paints, but you want to use a big beefy brush for the heavy body paints. So you want a bristle brush for that. To move stuff around, the bristle brush is going to be a lot better. Your softer nylon brushes will not move stuff around the same way. See that? Well, that's got a little bit of water in it, but it also just doesn't have that wonderful kind of scumbly effect that a bristle brush will. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. There are a lot of different kinds of brushes, and pay attention to what they're made from. I want to show you just a couple quick larger format brushes. These are also made by Low Cornell, and I actually go through several sets of these a year. These are very inexpensive. I mean, again, I'm thinking $5 or $6. And the reason I like these brushes is because I use them for glazing and blending. So what I will often do is I'll have 3 or 4 of these. When I'm glazing, you have to work dry when you're glazing and blending, and I want things to blend really, really soft. So I'll have 3 or 4 of these guys, and no matter how well I clean them, eventually the acrylic medium will start to cause the bristles to be stiff, and then I can no longer use it to blend. So these guys, I'm telling you, they're awesome. They're the Low Cornell white nylon, and they're awesome. Now, I have the big, $100 blending brush from England, and it's like a religious icon in my studio, and I'm so nervous around it that I hardly ever use it. These guys do the very same thing, and they're $5. So take from that what you will. Okay, questions for me. We're coming up on quarter of, and I've got some brushes sitting in water here. I just want to get the paint off of them. Good housekeeping. I have some paint to give away today. I forgot to give away paint last week. Was anybody here last week and I forgot to give paint away? I think I did. Oh well. um, so I want to know any more questions for me in terms of brushes. It's a big topic. I have written a couple of blog posts about it. So if you haven't been over to my blog, I'll put it in right here real quick. tisablackburn.blogspot.com, and you can also get there from the Acrylic Diva website. That has a direct link to it. Okay. Oh, you were there on Frida. You were there last Wednesday. I completely spaced out and forgot to give paint away. It's crazy. So today I'm going to give paint away without fail. I'm not going to forget. So let me get my piece of paper and I'm going to write a number down and you guys are going to guess. And I know I forgot, right? Hey, ay, ay. If you could see what this looks like at the other side, it's pretty crazy, you guys. I have no idea what kind of monkey business I get up to over here. And I'm doing it all by myself. You know, I have no people except for, I don't know if you can't quite see my mascot right here. That's my assistant. You're doing a good job, Daisy May. You're doing a really good job. Hold that floor down. Okay, so she helps me every week, and she forgot to remind me to give paint away last week, so I'm blaming her. Okay, so I'm gonna put a number on my board, and wait, you guys have to guess again. I didn't write it down yet. Okay, so it's going to be between 1 and 15 this time. I'm going to make it harder. Huh. All right, so there you go. I wrote it down. Between 1 and 15. I'm going to make it artistic. All right, so guess again. And I will give paint away. So, what's going on out there in the neighborhood? Anybody up to having a show or taking a cool class or seeing any really wonderful art videos or art exhibits or anything that they want to tell me about? I'd love to hear about that kind of stuff. Okay, Frida's 12 and Coho said 8. Is that everybody? Let me make sure that's everybody. We've got 4 people in here, and I've only got 2 guesses. All right, I'll wait a couple more minutes. I'll clean up my mess. Any good exhibits going on, you guys? Oh, I do want to tell you about this one. Let me grab this real quick for you guys, because if you're in San Francisco, or even if you're not, you should get here. Because this is one of my favorite people in the entire world, and he is here. Stuart Davis. Follow that link to the DeYoung Museum. I'm going to be over there seeing that next week. Stuart Davis, an awesome, awesome painter. Love, love, love his work. So get over there. All right, I've stalled enough. Here's the number 11. And Frida's closest. Frida, you win. So you got to send me your mailing address, okay? Be sure you send me your mailing address on email. Don't put it in the chat box or anything. Don't want to put stuff in a public forum. Even though we're all friends here, you never know. So send me that by email, and I will send you some paint. Thank you very much, you guys, for being so patient with me today with the internet weirdness, whatever that was. I'm not quite sure. Really don't even know what that was. But the fact that I can even get connected and say hello to everybody is kind of astonishing when you think about it, you know. So here we are doing our thing. You're welcome. You're welcome, Frida. You are welcome. So shoot me an email and put your address in there, and I will pop your paint out in the mail. So, any other questions for me? Do you all have any topics, hot topics, problem solving with acrylics that you need help with? Anything like that? I am going to be posting two new classes between now and September. One of them is going to be the Paint Like Monet. That's coming up. Ugh, I'm still working on that. Paint Like Monet is coming up, and I'm also going to be posting a collection, a curated collection of Creative Flow classes that are going to be edited, and there's going to be some additional information added into those. So if you can't get into the Creative Flow live class, you're going to be able to get some, collection, best of Creative Flow hits, volume one. Coho, thank you. Thank you. I love what I do. I love my job. This is what I do. So I love it. I love having you guys out there. Tell your friends, tell your pals, everybody get some popcorn and come on Wednesdays and we'll hang out and do stuff, all right? All right, I'm going to wrap it up and try and go figure out what kind of internet gremlins I had going on. And I may be back live here in a few minutes just to check the feed and stuff. So if you see me and you want to pop in and say hi, I'm just going to be testing. But it'll be there. I'll be there. Hello. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up. And remember, you can always shoot me an email with questions. Frida, be sure you get over there and send me your email, send me your mailing address so that I can send you some paint. Okay? All right. In the meantime, have a great rest of the week. And what do I always say? Keep painting. All right? I'll see you all later. Bye.